Hi guys, welcome to another episode of I'm Doing Great. Thank you for coming here, citizens of the Grateful Nation. How are you? We have a guest on today who might have, some knowledge about protecting yourself when it comes to your data, when it comes to your image online. And guess what? I'm excited to talk about our partner, who's today's sponsor, Aura. And I like it.
Yay!
Yay! Everybody clapping. Okay. Aura is an easy-to-use app that includes everything you need to stay safe online. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers by scanning the so-called dark web, where criminals sell stolen information, looking for your emails, your passwords, and social security numbers, and it alerts you fast if it finds anything. It's like a detective little dog that lets you know when your stuff is stolen. Anyway, they help you fight back against those annoying websites that make your personal information public by automatically requesting removal of your info, and it helps to reduce robocalls. Aura gives you near real-time alerts on suspicious credit inquiries, like if someone was opening a loan or credit card in your name. I hate when that happens. Their VPN allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browsing history or personal information safe and encrypted. And they protect your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, and more so the bad guys can't break in. They can't break in. Aura even helps you manage what your kids are doing on their devices. You can restrict specific apps, set screen time limits, no TikTok for you, and even set focus times to ensure your child is doing their homework instead of binging on YouTube. And their password manager lets you store and access your online passwords securely and conveniently. Maybe you already have an app that does one of these things, but guess what? With Aura, you don't have to download and pay for 7 separate apps. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online, and if you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with our link. You heard that right. 2 free weeks with our link. You'll be shocked at how much of your private information Aura finds exposed over those 2 weeks. So go to aura.com/doinggreat to start your free trial. It's also linked below, and you can scan the QR code. We have a very interesting guest on the show today. He writes for, I can say Timcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Writes for timcast.com. Please welcome Shane Cashman.
What's up,
Yay!
guys? Happy
Look
to
at
be
Gina
here.
smiling. How you doing, Shane?
I'm good. I'm stressed, but I'm good. It's a good stress.
Yeah, we've heard
stress.
that you haven't really been sleeping all that much, and I guess we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I want to start off how you heard about us, because obviously you did write some very big articles extremely recently, but before that, about a month ago, you got to interview Kanye, the artist formerly known as Kanye. You sat down with him for a pretty long time and did a really extensive and really well-written article for Timcast that broke Timcast. But before, how did you find us?
Instagram.
Oh, what'd you see?
One of the few things I've ever found on Instagram that was worthwhile.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
I forget. It was probably like a year ago at this point. Maybe more. How long have you been doing this podcast? Because it was before you guys switched like the look of everything.
Right.
Kind of rebranded at a certain point a while back.
Right. It's been a little over a year.
So it was before you like changed everything.
Okay.
And I was like, these guys are funny.
Do you remember if it was like anything specific that you saw?
I knew Gina from Twitter, and she's one of the few people on there who really starts fires, and I like fire starters.
People say that.
Yeah.
I like,
you don't. No, don't act like you don't know.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, like,
I know.
because sometimes I just tweet something that I think is a normal thing to say.
That's the thing. Controversial things these days are very normal.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the thing. So
But
it's
you
like,
say a lot of normal things.
I do. I say a lot of normal
They're
things.
extremely controversial, though. I
Right.
see people getting upset about it. So I think I saw that on Instagram, your name attached. I was interested. And you were funny, and you were talking a lot of smack. So
Yeah,
we instantly got, and
do.
my wife and I will sit around and
does
just
that?
watch the memes you guys post.
Oh, nice.
I'll laugh at them all the time.
We've
The Jonah
put a
Hill
lot of-
one is our favorite.
That's one of my favorite. Yeah, that's one of my
my
favorite
goodness.
memes. I put a lot of hard work into making some of those memes, and some of those memes they're not really. You really have to watch the show to understand them. Some are kind of broad, but some are super specific to the
Yeah,
show.
you've got
Yes.
some deep cuts.
Oh yeah, for sure, deep cuts. But I think I remember seeing you either follow the page or follow me, because I was like, oh, who is this guy? Oh, he writes for Timcast. Oh, interesting. And then I think I started following you. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then Shane didn't invite himself on the show. I invited Shane onto the show. I think it'd be really interesting to talk about, because we've been getting some.
That's Mike's favorite thing, when people invite themselves on the show. He loves that. So,
well, we got one of those
slide
yesterday.
into his
So
DMs.
look into our DMs, look into the show's DMs, and you can
look.
see them.
I was
Is it a
going
good
too
one?
soon if you didn't.
Yeah?
I was like, I'm gonna make myself be on this show.
Well, honestly, here's the thing. No one has really sat down with Ye for, longer than, I guess, 10 minutes where I would find it interesting. So after you had written the article, and if you invited yourself on the show, like, hey guys, I just interviewed Ye, I'd love to talk about it. I'd be like, yeah, well, of course.
Yeah.
But if you're like, hey guys, I have this channel and no one knows who I am, and I think I'd be really funny.
Interesting story. I have a compelling story of I overcame a lot of my life.
Yeah. Like, no.
Well, I could get into that later. But I think one of the greatest honors after the Ye thing was posted was people I respect hitting me up, and you were one of them.
Oh, well, I mean, we can even, well, thank you very much. I mean, that compliment means a lot to me. Thank you very much. But also, I don't know, did that bring you to Bret Easton Ellis?
Yeah. I forget how he found out, but he had been familiar. Well, he watches Tim, actually.
Okay.
So he was familiar, I think, with me through that and the stuff I was writing there already. And then the Ye thing happened, and that like kind of switched it up, because he had one of his first podcasts the first podcast he did was with Ye.
Really? Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a
Are
great
you familiar with the Bret Easton Ellis?
I know that name.
He
wrote American Psycho, Lesson Zero. Yeah.
Oh.
He's interesting, and he's I've always liked him, but then when Trump was happening and there was like the leftist meltdown, he wrote this thing that was so great about like he's not surprised, he's not angry, all these things. I was like, wow, it was nice to see someone that I've always liked keeping true.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he reached out to the people we got at Timcast who booked a lot of our stuff and was interested in talking about Ye and all that. We have very similar experiences with Ye because they were both at times of like extreme controversy. I think Ye, for him, had just...
Is that like 2014 or 2015?
I think so.
Maybe?
I think it was maybe like when he put on the red hat for the first time.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
It was around that time. Might not have been that exact thing. So he was dealing with him like in the aftermath of that. I think he was even brought to the hospital as Ye's daughter was born and talked to him for hours in the hallway. Really? Yeah. And then I flew in after the I Love Hitler on Alex Jones.
Right.
So we had two very interesting ways to talk about it in different times.
Oh, yeah. I read, I think this book may have come out in 2016 or 2017, the book that he wrote called White.
Yeah, it's good.
I don't remember if I finished reading it or not, but I remember reading it on a plane somewhere.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, he got a lot of flack for that.
White.
Yeah.
What do you think, Gina?
White. How did Ye seem when you saw him? Did he seem good?
The moment we saw each other, so when I saw him in LA, it would have been the first time I saw him since like the previous Monday. There was like a 4-day gap.
Okay.
And we had like a 10-minute interaction at Timcast when he walked off the studio, and I went to see him, tried to like send him back upstairs. It wasn't happening. We had a really good conversation, talked about music, his opera, all this stuff. And when I flew out there, super nervous. I was like, am I going to get masked?
I felt that in the article you wrote. I was on the edge of my seat. I could feel your nerves.
Never had that much agita. I mean, I've listened to him forever. He is my #1 favorite artist. So super nervous, but the second he saw me, it was all smiles. He remembered me, and we started talking about art right away. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, he seemed totally stable. He's not like everyone's telling me he's crazy. And
that's what Gavin said when I asked him. He said he's locked in. He's very stable. He's there.
I was there with Gavin.
Okay,
I was listening to them talk, waiting, being like, I wanted to also like last forever, so I could just be nervous. I was like, I'm not ready. I had a lot to say, but then it ended. I met Gavin there, and it was really cool. And then we spent 2 days together.
Oh, nice. In a situation like that, I'm wondering if you're listening to him talk to Gavin, can you use that stuff as well?
I would, yeah. If it seemed relevant, I would probably find a way. I like absorb everything and just kind of throw it on the page. So I could have, but I feel like that was Gavin's thing, and it wasn't too relevant. But Ye references it, I think, in the story. Okay. Because he wasn't so happy with it.
Oh boy.
It was a little bit of drama.
Before we get into the Ye stuff, this is stuff that is happening, I guess, kind of now. It's kind of happening live. Trending. You have a trending, right? That's the word. Trending. You have a story that I'm assuming is going to go live pretty soon. Part 2 of
part 2. Yeah.
Okay. So I've heard of it. I don't really know too much about it, but I'll let Gina kind of lead it. Like, this is what the Eliza Bleu stuff. Let's talk about it. I don't really know too much. Why don't you kind of like start it and just say what you know about it, and then Shane can kind of take over.
This is what I know. I know that I just started following her probably maybe a year ago on Twitter. A lot of followers, and she describes herself as a sex trafficking survivor. And so she has been advocating for sex trafficking victims for a while. And a lot of stuff came out recently that I saw accusing her of lying, saying that her story doesn't match up. I was sent a few threads of people who dug up where she was at the time of when she says she was trafficked, and they were like pulling up where she was traveling with bands and she was making music and posting videos and all this stuff. And so there was this big controversy of people claiming that her story was totally fake. So that's all I know. Yeah. I read only 2 threads on Twitter. I mean, when I first saw her, I was telling you earlier, when I first encountered her on Twitter, like I looked at her photos and her videos and I'm like, to me, that looks like a woman who has gone through some trauma, because you can tell in a woman's eyes if she has been like severely sexually assaulted or trafficked or something. It's just like, it's there because the eyes are the windows to the soul. Right. But whenever I was seeing all of these threads on Twitter, I was like, oh my gosh, is she grifting? Like, have we been duped? Like, have we been lied to? And so I, for a while there, I was like believing that she had totally lied about her story. However, you came in today and were saying that I didn't even know you wrote about her. And so apparently Shane has some...
Right, you don't have
a perspective.
You don't have to go over your article like verbatim, but
I was going to read it right now. It's 20,000 words if you guys have the time now.
Oh yeah, sure, we got time for it. I mean, 3-hour podcast, these cameras can't die. So, I mean, yeah, for sure. Okay, so give us your perspective and how you got this story.
All right, so I'll back up before all of this. She'd been on IRL once before. I only knew her, kind of like how we all probably knew her, through Twitter. Advocate for human trafficking and a survivor, so she said, and never would have questioned that, even though I question most things. It's like, why would I question that? Then before I did IRL with her, about a month ago, I think it was now, we had talked on Twitter, and she had shared some of my YE stories, and she said some very nice things. So then we kind of struck up a conversation. I was thinking this would be a good person to write about. I had just finished being with Carrie Lake at in the courtroom for her whole trial. This seemed really interesting. I love writing profiles of people. So we talked about it, and then she came to do IRL. I came to say hi. My wife and I met her. We fans of her stuff. We watched a lot of her podcasts, and Tim was just like, "You should do the show." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" I mean, I love doing a show, but it's stressful. The lights. You
rarely do the show?
I've done it like 8 times now. So it's a decent amount. And I love doing it, but it's just a lot of people at once. I prefer just writing in the corner, in the shadow. So, but I did the show with her, and she announced at the beginning of that show that she was going to read statements from women who were supposed victims of Andrew Tate, who had just been arrested in Romania for accusations.
Breaking as your show's going on. Yeah.
Like we just found out from her probably 2 minutes before going live. And it was like, oh my goodness, we got to change the headline of this clip. So in that show, we talk about how I'm skeptical of everything with accusations, not even thinking like I should be skeptical of her. Why would I? And I'm sharing with her how I feel like Me Too kind of oversaturated the accusation market. And now anytime any accusation comes out, I immediately lead with skepticism. Not a great thing to feel, but it is what it is. And it was a complicated conversation because she's there advocating for women that she believes are victims. She doesn't understand from our end, I need transparency. I can't just hear this and be like, okay, yeah, he's a big guy. They come after a lot of big people. And another little backstory is I was just talking to Tate directly to write a story about him. And then he got arrested that next day. Dang. So I'm listening to her talk. I'm like, oh goodness, this is pretty wild. But we had a great conversation. It ended well. We all kind of hugged it out in the end, even though it was like we kind of talked in circles about all this stuff. And that was that. She's getting a lot of notoriety in the last few months for working with Elon with Twitter and trying to remove child porn.
Okay.
One of her major things, one of her like pinned tweets is there's a young boy who was 13 who had illicit material of him on Twitter. Twitter refused to take down for years, even though he shared with Twitter, government ID. This is how old I am now. That's how old I was then. You can look at all this stuff. And they said no. So she went hard on that whole campaign. There's a whole lawsuit for that. So then Elon kind of took note of that. They did a Twitter Spaces together. She kind of blew up from there. Once that happened, and once we were off of IRL together, she had a very negative backlash. The audience did not like her. It was just
Tim's audience.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
The super chats, everyone. It was very negative. I understood because when you come out with these accusations with no proof yet, like the lawsuit was just happening, so she couldn't even talk about it. So if we
was
asked
this regarding
questions,
Tate or the kid on Twitter? Okay, got you.
Yeah, sorry. On IRL for Tate, no proof yet that we could hear,
right?
That she probably knows,
right?
So I understand everyone's reluctance to just be like, yeah, we believe you. But the negative hate was just unbelievable. I never saw the whole chat turn against someone
really
to that degree. It was absolutely negative. And me, I'm like, I've met her a bunch. I met her once and we talked a bunch. And one private conversation we had kind of went against what everyone started saying. The narrative started being, she's a grifter. This is before the threads you're talking about. She's in it for fame. Look how she dresses. Look at her makeup, all these things. In my head, I'm like,
I'm going to look her up.
I had a private conversation with her and YE in group chat.
Okay.
Because when I'm with Ye, he's talking about human trafficking. And I'm saying to him, if you are running for president, that would be a really good thing to talk about because no one's really talking about it. So Eliza's the one, of course. I'm like, she's the biggest advocate I know of. So I got her permission to share her contact with him. We had a group chat. And the first thing she said is, I don't do publicity stunts. I don't want money. I just want to get the word out there. So I'm like, she's told that to one of the most popular people on the planet in private. That showed me like, I'm not going to believe all this like talk about fame and grift just yet. Then the thread came out.
Okay.
Then the accusations came out. And then I started having questions. I'm like, maybe this is all fake. I don't know. I am skeptical of everything. The thread kind of, like you said, pulled apart her whole timeline. You know, she said on multiple podcasts, she's been trafficked twice. So once at a younger age, once at an older age. They started compiling these dates and videos, things that didn't seem like she was upset in. And it kind of blew up the whole narrative.
Okay, a couple of questions, and sorry to interject.
No, it's okay.
So who did the thread?
I can find it right now.
Okay.
I don't know. I think he might have been banned by now. I forget his name.
Is it a dude who, I mean, does he have any relation to Tate or anyone?
I have no idea.
Okay. So
Manuel DeFango.
Yeah,
what does it say, Gina?
That's right.
So let's see if it even comes up here because
I think it's probably archived somewhere.
Okay, so it's deleted or
he's
he's deplatformed because I sent the thread to Bryson because he was talking about Eliza on Twitter and I said, hey, this is what I've found. But now when so the first tweet, it says, finally got blocked by the lying grifter Eliza Bleu. In honor of this, we will fully debunk her lie of being a sex trafficking survivor with her own words.
And that's the thread. That's
the start of the thread. But when I click on it, it's just replies to the thread.
Gotcha.
So it's either been
He's been nuked. So in the aftermath of that thread happened, and I think it took like a week or two for people to start picking up on it.
Okay.
Started going viral. There's a lot of bigger people with like channels that do this kind of like the YouTube drama thing.
Oh, sure, like the quartering and things like
all
that.
Those people.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a big role in this drama.
He becomes a major player.
Is he okay, this is why we don't do this. This is why we don't do the internet drama. This is why we don't make videos. Like our reaction videos are kind of like that, but not really. So does he support her? Does he not?
So what happened is Quartering and Brittany Venti took that thread and kind of started doing their own research.
Like analyze, okay.
People found a video of her on World Star Hip Hop. It was like 6 years old. It's like a Q-Tip song, and she's like twerking and she's scantily clad, and she seems very happy in it. And they shared screenshots of that on Twitter. It was like her bare ass. And then almost instantly, everyone who shared that image was nuked.
Oh, really?
Suspended and/or banned.
Really?
Quartering's the one, and the Brittany Venti's the other. Those are the two like big ones. I think there were other ones, and they were told by Twitter, if you don't delete these, you can't have your account back.
And then the hashtags free Brittany Venti and free the Quartering were trending for a long time on Twitter.
Are they back on now, or do we know?
The Quartering is.
Venti's not.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, here, when you said something before about, she said she'd been trafficked twice.
Right.
Do we know, like, does she have a specific definition of what trafficked means to her, or does she like what? Because trafficking is what, you know, like I'm sure at least the both of you can explain, like, what does trafficking actually mean? Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of different forms of trafficking. Like you could even argue that kids who are thrown into Disney are trafficked, you know, and then there's also, you know, kids who are on social media that get these messages from groomers, like, and then they end up being trafficked. And then there are situations of kids who are literally sold. Like there's a lot of different.
That's the definition that I immediately identify with. Is like selling
Eliza,
kids.
If you ask Eliza, she will like rattle off the federal definition, which is, I'm not going to get it right, but it's like force, fraud, coercion into the sale of sex.
Okay.
And then, but it's a big umbrella because like all those things. And then slave labor could be in that too. And like those horrible mines in, I think, South America. Or maybe South Africa, I forget. But so she has that definition. That was one of the things that was picked apart when this started going viral and people were getting banned. Now it was like all out war. We're going to destroy her, right? Twitter was going hard. And people were finding old clips. And the one that was popular was the Michael Malice clip where she seems to define trafficking as if it's catfishing. She clumsily describes her being trafficked as if, this is how it sounds, someone took her picture and made a fake profile, and that's all it was.
Oh, so they trafficked her image.
That's
maybe,
not, now I know that's not what she meant.
Okay.
And she's not the best at describing this.
I was just going to interject and say, I think unfortunately, Eliza is not the most articulate speaker.
Yeah.
And I think that works against her.
Yeah, it is. It is. I know I spent 3 days with her and her family trying to make sense of it all, you know?
Right.
So we talked about when I was on IRL with her, we briefly discussed the idea of me doing a profile. It seemed very easy then. Then this happened. And then I'm like kind of in the shadows, not wanting to tell anybody. I'm still working on it because I'm like watching that, and I don't really like working under stress like that. Yeah. So I fly out. I make the plan to fly out in like Illinois. It's like on the border of Illinois and Iowa, and middle of nowhere. This is just a week ago, and I'm just gonna hang out with her. I'm gonna get her story, staying with her parents. I'm gonna talk to them about it. What turned into like, well, I was supposed to do like an interview, it turned into like an interrogation, because now I'm taking all these questions and I'm having to ask her the most horrible things I've ever asked anybody.
Right.
Because two things are possible. I'm either going to expose an elaborate lie and it's a whole crazy grift, or I'm going to make her relive the worst trauma someone could go through, you know? And I'm like struggling with that because it's both of those options suck. Right.
But one of those would end with vindication, though.
For sure. And it seemed like I've just been kind of like surfing God's hand into controversies, whether it was Ye, whether it was Carrie Lake, at the exact moment when the controversy is happening.
Right.
So it just felt like, oh yeah, that challenge was exciting. While I'm on the plane, Tim announced me by name going to see her.
Oh no.
He's getting attacked hard by the guilt by association thing.
Right.
He doesn't typically talk about any of this drama. Yeah, he did the Crowder Daily Wire thing.
Yeah.
Boring. It's whatever. I got a lot of things we could talk about, all those people, but I know you guys do too. But, you know, typically he doesn't. He did do the one video reaction to Kriegler. So he doesn't not have a history of talking about drama, but typically like the Jack Murphy thing, remember that whole story? Yeah. He shies away.
Well, he covers the news.
That's
so
it,
it's kind of hard for him to stay away from that sort of stuff.
People have seen him talk about certain things, but they're typically very personal. Just because someone's a guest doesn't mean you have to. If you set that standard, you're just going to always do it because everyone on the internet is an asshole.
Yeah,
you know. So, and I respect him for that. I don't like talking about that stuff either. I'd rather keep things personal. So I think we were under some crazy stress. At that point, it's probably been 4 or 5 days of just the most insane attacks. The worst things said about us. You know, I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, this is what they're going to say about us. I'm fucking Eliza. She's fucking Elon. She's got free Teslas. She's fucking Tim. All these things. And they did say those things. Like it was like, we know how they operate.
Right.
So I flew out there. I land. Tim now says it on air. This is like the first time I've been part of some viral like orgy where like people are just hating on me. They're already like telling me the kind of story I need to write.
Right.
And I don't write stories for any trend. I don't write stories for your demands. I'm going to write the story I write. I told Cassandra, my editor in chief, it's very possible I write a story that Eliza's going to hate.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm here to do. But I also, I liked Eliza, right? I went out there feeling good for her and wanting to do justice for her, but also knowing this could all fall apart. And I'm not going to hide it if it does, which would be a bummer because she's been very nice to me. And I think she's a sweet person. So we talk, you know, I won't go over the whole article, but like we hung out at the world's largest truck stop in Iowa and just talked about her first trafficking experience. I'm watching her body language, her eyes. It felt like an interrogation. I like have to stop eating because I'm either like, she's an amazing liar or the worst things that happened to her at the age of 17, you know, in Hollywood when, this is another problem with her. She doesn't name the 2 traffickers.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people criticize her for. They say, "Well, name your traffickers if it's true." It's
a weird thing. I'm the one who told her about transparency, and now here I am trying to like be reasonable with her, but I'm telling her like the name would help you. Right. I know the name now. I can't share it.
You can whisper it.
Yeah.
Would that also invite like possible bodily threat or injury towards her? Is that kind of one of the reasons why she...
Not with the first one, but perhaps with the second.
Oh.
So, yeah. So the first one, and again, she's getting a lot of flack for saying it's for legal reasons.
Right.
I think that mostly pertains to the second one, which happens years later. The first one, I don't think there's any threat there. But what I told her was just, you're an advocate for survivors, and now this guy's just out in the loose. Yeah. Like, he could be hurting people still, which I think me saying that is why eventually she told me the name so that I could do my research as best as I can. And like I say in the story that comes out probably right now, I'm like scared to look. Oh, it's out.
Why are you getting lit up?
No, my editor Chris just let me know.
Okay.
I start a war at the end of the story, so that's gonna be fun. But I say to her, you know, that about not naming a name. And I think days later, she was thinking about it and she shared it. And what I was going to say is she could have just told me a bogus, she could have told me a real name, knowing that I could go back now and I would just like have confirmation bias.
Right,
like,
right,
oh,
right.
it does add up. It does add up, but I don't have proof.
Yeah.
She can't produce proof.
Right.
You know? So I had to talk to her family. I spent, you know, a lot of time with her family talking
Isn't her
about
dad
them.
in politics or something? And that's
He's
one of
on
the
the
things?
board of his district and
Okay.
he was a state rep, I believe.
Okay.
He was in a seminary school in Denver. He's a farmer now, former professor. Her mom was a former dean of that same college that her dad worked at.
Okay.
She's an epidemiologist. Really nice people.
Yeah.
On a beautiful farm. Very nice that they let me stay at this beautiful farmhouse and in the middle of nowhere. It was negative 7 degrees.
They could have killed you.
I feel pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
right? Like,
this is the
staying
second
at their
time in a
house?
year I stayed at a random house on a farm in the middle of nowhere and got death threats both times.
Really? From on the internet, not from the people that you were staying with, clearly.
For the last book in real life, people who were very mad at me. That's a whole other story.
Oh, okay.
But for this one, mostly online, all online. Just saying the worst stuff. I think it's, you know, it's trolls.
Here's a question for the whole music video stuff. And like I said, I don't know anything about what is happening here. But when you said that, you know, they're finding like her dancing and twerking. Is it possible? And, you know, this is just being the devil's advocate, but is it possible that people can hide trauma and do things and act a certain way in order to try and just kind of not deal with that trauma?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think?
This is real quick. This is exactly why I just told my wife on the way over. I'm so happy. This is the podcast I'm doing right now.
Oh, really?
Because that is the answer.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just coming back from Jubilee, like I was talking to people who are clearly like affected by traumatic events in their life.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I don't think people, it's hard to understand trauma. And have you guys heard of the Lindsay Clancy story in Duxbury, Massachusetts? So really quick, 32-year-old mom, labor and delivery nurse, killed her 3 kids.
Yes, I just saw your thing. It's
right. It's horrendous. And a lot of people say that she showed no remorse. And they say that on the day of the murders, she took her daughter to the pediatrician. Everyone at the pediatrician's office says she was totally normal. And so she was voluntarily hospitalized herself from the 1st to the 5th of January because she was having suicidal ideations. And I think she had one thought about harming her children, and she was honest with her psychiatrist and her husband. But for the remainder of January, after she was released from the psychiatric hospital, all accounts say that she acted totally normally. She was interacting with family.
while she was still on medication, though?
Yes.
That's got to be the problem, man.
Yeah.
Like after having suicidal thoughts, they put on 13 different drugs, right?
Yeah, they say at one time she was never on more than 5 drugs at one time, but at the time of the murder, she was on 3 different medications. And so the whole point is that in the month of January, she acted normal. And a lot of people, the prosecution is claiming, and a lot of people who, you know, hate her and just want to say she's this vicious murderer, they say that's proof that she was totally fine and she had no postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis. But I don't think people realize that when whether it's trauma or whether it's some sort of psychosis that women can have in postpartum phases, like people are really good at hiding it. I also have a theory that women are particularly good at hiding trauma and hiding psychosis. I think they're better at it than men are. I think there's some.
You guys are a different species. If
There's
you've ever seen,
totally,
which I know you've seen a woman give birth. It's like this is a different.
I didn't
whole
personally,
species.
but yeah.
Oh, I caught mine.
Oh boy,
cut those umbilical cords. But yeah,
Wow.
you guys are different.
Yeah, we're very different, and I think women. It's just like. It's tough, but I think that we're better at hiding trauma. So in a situation like that, okay, yeah, Eliza is dancing and twerking in a music video. Like there are so many women that are trafficked that twerk and smile and flirt and do porn and do all kinds of stuff, you know?
Yep.
So,
yeah. So now that the story's out,
and this isn't a cope. It's not a cope.
No,
We're not coping
right.
here.
I'm just saying it's just a take. It's just a perspective. I'm not even like outwardly defending her. I'm just saying that's not in and of itself proof that she's lying.
That's how I feel. So on the second or third day, we then walk through in great detail the second time she was trafficked, which was many years later, and it kind of goes between Chicago and LA, and she's with this guy. It's kind of like Stockholm syndrome, you know. And I talked to other survivors who have organizations and they're leaders in this thing, and they all have this very similar story. Because I'm just asking them, like, how can you stay with someone 10 years? Like, I understand you can be in this like doom loop of abuse, but it's also hard when you hear to the extent they're being abused. I mean, this one lady, I cried a few times writing this story because I'm having to listen to her cry again as I'm making her relive this thing. And it's some of the most horrible, horrible things I've ever heard happen to anybody. I mean, she was, this other lady I talked to real quick, and I'll get back to Eliza's video. She was a prostitute who then was trafficked by her boyfriend that she loved for 10 years and slept with 10,000 men. I mean, it is just, and now she's this amazing Christian lady who started Hookers for Jesus to kind of help women get out of that and come to God. But her story is insane. And her and Eliza know each other now because they kind of run in that advocacy space. But you're right with the trauma being hidden thing, I believe too. And so the context with the video, as far as I can tell, I don't know the whole context, but the story's out now and I can say it. It seems like it, and I'm just guessing because I don't know the full story. It seems like it's part of the trafficking, as if to legitimize, I can't talk, legitimize someone?
Legitimize, yeah.
Thank you. Into being like a normal person. And it's also used as like an advertisement. Now that's, this is guess, and kind of Eliza's hinting at it, but there's a case number with her legal team that I could review. I can't share that case number, but that case number has proof, supposedly, which seems true, that was used to show Twitter and all the social platforms to be like, you gotta take this down because it's not as consensual as you might think.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what that case
That's
is.
with the second one.
I don't know what that case is. I might be totally wrong. That's my gut.
Okay.
I know there's porn stars who've been trafficked and they seem fine.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's very dark, and she's not accusing, like she told me, she's not accusing World Star of trafficking her. She's not accusing the director and the director's girlfriend of trafficking her, but the guy she was with seems to have done something. I don't know what that is, but there's a lot of videos of her dancing. Those are still out there.
Right.
She has been very open about, because I've been like combing through her life now, talking to her and then like going online, seeing like what adds up here. She's been very open about always wanting to be famous since her parents remember since she was a little girl. She's always wanted to do music videos. She had a video vixen vlog, a blog. These are things she's always wanted. So yeah, I think there's also time outside of when you're being trafficked doesn't mean you're every minute of your life, you're out there hustling, but there's a lot of that for her. So yeah, I walked away with a different feeling about it all. I want to believe her, seeing her mom tell me about the hospital, call her when Eliza was 17 in LA, because Eliza didn't know how her mom even got the phone call. Eliza had overdosed at the buyer's house after like a week there, where she was abused by this fat old man, according to her. And this isn't the musician. This is like the buyer. The musician sold her. And we talk about that in the story, but she was like, how did my mom even know I was in Cedars-Sinai overdosed on crystal meth and whatever else she was on? And so I'm talking to her mom. Her mom's like, oh, the doctor called me. And I viewed the bill. It said rape kit, So that to me was also like, for the first story, maybe her mom's an actor. I say this in the thing. I'm like, maybe the walls are going to fall away. There's a studio. I've been had. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. But they could all just be elaborate liars.
That's the thing. It seems like a horrible thing to lie about. People do it. People make up stories.
This is the other bit of proof for me why I feel good about being confident in her story. Everyone says she wants to do it for fame. Her mom's an epidemiologist who raised Eliza, always worried about pandemics. This is what she cared about. And when the pandemic started, when the lockdown started, she reached out to the Daily Wire and said the lockdowns are going to be bad for victims of trafficking. It's going to be really bad. And the writer, and I have the direct messages from the writer, like behind the scenes, that are in the first story, plus the tweets that were then deleted, saying this: Eliza asked to be anonymous. She didn't want to be a public survivor. She didn't want to be a public advocate. She was doing private advocacy. The writer of that Daily Wire article said, I want to include your name and face. It'll be better for the story. And they went back and forth, and then she said, okay. So like that to me is also, she could have jumped on that right away and said, here's my mug, here's my headshot, do it up. It doesn't prove anything, but it just gives me a little pause. I mean, like maybe it's not fully for fame.
A little pause too. It also could have been done on purpose. Like, if there's any sort of scrutiny into my future, I'm going to play it as I'm the good person beforehand.
It's psychotic to think that far ahead, but people do.
People are sociopaths.
People do.
People are sociopaths.
And I've met them.
Sociopaths.
I've been meeting them while writing this story.
Yeah.
They're definitely out there, and she could very well be one.
Your head's got to be in like a really weird place constantly when you're doing stories like this.
Well, the thing with this is different is I've never received this type of like hate wave.
Who's it coming from specifically?
That's a great
Like
question.
guys?
That's a great
Is
question.
it mostly men?
I don't think they're real. When does this
Bots.
come out? When does this come out?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Which
Probably
is
tomorrow. Which
today.
is today. Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
I think I know some. I'm not ready to talk about it yet.
Well, no,
I think-
not
I think I
personally, but
understand.
from the majority. You
I think I understand. I think there's an engine behind this, and they target people.
Mhm.
I really do. And I kind of will try to break that down in the third piece. I'm still making sense of it, but I think this was something very nefarious.
Really?
I do. I really do. I have proof. I think I have proof.
But okay, so with all of this, you're not like mentioning like Andrew Tate or anything like that. You're not making any claims against him because it just happened to be this really like coincidental incident that he's arrested for allegedly doing this allegedly sex trafficking people.
Right.
And you happen to just be talking to someone who happens to be just be an advocate. She's on Tim's show mentioning it.
Yep.
Could it come from like that sphere of
Very well. That was a theory. People were saying it's Tate bots. Everyone says it's Tate bots. I don't know. I honestly didn't know much about Tate until I talked to him.
Right.
I just never really watched his stuff. I think he's pretty funny. Doesn't really offend me. I think sometimes he says things just to get a reaction, which
Sure.
I appreciate.
I want to talk about Tate, but there's this clip of Eliza that went pretty viral where she was talking about, and maybe you can clarify what she meant, talking about like a 12-year-old being able to consent to sex.
Yeah,
with
that's
the
a hard one to
permission.
navigate.
Yeah, what on earth was that about?
I asked her, I was like, that's not a good look. She says it was just pure, like, we're going to speak openly. I don't think she named an age, though. If I watched it back, you can correct me. I think someone else did.
They just
Then
said
she went with it.
child.
She tells me she's thinking of 17. That could be she's just like, I don't want to say it was 12 or 13. I would think I watched that whole clip. I don't think she said an age. Regardless, though, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because I'm like, as I told her, like, that's not happening, you know? I got kids. I'm definitely not happening. That's definitely not happening with me.
Yeah, no.
And I'm not full on anarchist. You know, I sometimes will flirt with it because I just have bad days. And I'm like, I hate this whole system.
Right. Wait, what's not happening?
So she said, like, in a perfect utopia, anarchist utopia.
Anarchy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get into that. The community would come together and decide if these people, these minors, I think she said minors, should be together. And then it's like this like thought experiment with her, Clint Russell, and that Thaddeus guy who I think at the time of that podcast had written an article about like being with minors. And then Clint said he reached out to Eliza because she's like the advocate. And then Clint has said now like it's weird, like she just went off on that rant. So she told me she didn't mean it to be kids. I think she's rethought it. I don't think she still has thought it through fully though. Like, because I don't fully understand it because I just like don't agree with that. You know, I've been 18, but even that's young, you know?
Yeah, because when I saw that clip, she was saying things like, well, you know, it's up to the parents and the community to help decide and advocate for the child when the child's ready to have sex. And I'm like, bitch, I got a daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me talking about that.
Yeah. I don't agree with that at all. And I also like don't agree with like anarchy to that degree because I don't like tyranny. I don't like a lot of rules either. And anarchy just seems like a lot more rules. Because it's just like everywhere you go, there's more rules. Like, I don't know what this community's like. And so it's not that interesting to me. She seems to have been like rolling it back, but I don't really make sense of that still. Because I'm just, why would you even want to have that thought experiment in the first place?
I mean, the jury's still out with her. I don't know what to think. I'm going to read both parts of your articles and just kind of see what I think. But it's really tough because I'm also, I think everyone in this room is just skeptical of everything when it first comes out. And we should be. We've been, you know, our hand is forced to be that way. Like we've been forced to be skeptical. So I don't know.
I think, and I say it in this article that just came out, like the reader should levy this criticism against me. I've obviously become too emotional to this story. Like I'm too close to it. People know I'm doing it. I've been inundated with attacks, the worst things that could have been said. And I'm trying to be very open with it, you know, being like, this is what's been said about me. This is how I feel. Like I'm still trying to make sense of it. I still have the same questions a lot of these people have. And then it's
Where
up to
were her
them to
parents
decide.
during the time of?
Yeah. So when she was 17, this is interesting. Because I'm like, how did that happen? She was homeschooled. She was going to turn 18 soon. Her whole life, she's been doing a lot of modeling. This is leading up to 17, like photo shoots and stuff like that. And she says she met a photographer at like, I think it was Warped Tour or something. And the photographer, this is when she's 15 now. The photographer said, I can give you like your dreams. You do modeling, you come out to LA. So that's like 2 years of her in contact now with this guy. And, you know, the parents probably maybe bought into it because the parents moved her out there. Her father drove her to LA. They got her an apartment. And within 2 days, she says that thing happened that I told you about with the
Within 2 days?
That's what she says.
Okay. So some personal stuff. You know, I'm a photographer.
Right.
So when I lived in New York, I used to do a lot of testing work. I did it for major models, Ford models, just a bunch of other big modeling agencies. Ford's probably one of the biggest. And whenever they had what's called a new face, it's generally a girl who was anywhere between the ages of like 14 and 16. I did a couple of shoots, and the parents were always there. And I did the shoots in my Bushwick apartment. And looking back on it now, I always thought, what on earth were these parents thinking? Like taking their daughter to a guy, all they had on me was my website. That was it. And I mean, at that time, it was like a lot of the Bieber stuff was like, hey, this guy's legit. But even then, we're going to his apartment. Why doesn't he have a studio? I just don't have a studio. I didn't rent out a studio. We're just doing it. It's almost like headshots for new faces, but they're still kind of, they can still be styled. They can still be makeup. And I just remember shooting this one girl. I think the youngest girl I ever photographed was 13, and her father was there, and we kept it very, very tasteful. She was obviously fully clothed, everything like that. But I just remember like directing her and just feeling super awkward. Yeah. Just because I'm like, this is a 13-year-old girl. That's her father, but not awkward because what I was doing. Awkward because the father was like pushing her to do this. Or like, I understand there are plenty of, you want to support your kids, especially with any goals or dreams that they have. But like a Bushwick apartment. It's kind of odd.
I think dreams of fame will destroy you, especially at that age.
Look at child actors. You look back at all their stuff. They're smiling, they're acting, they're doing press and all that kind of stuff. But either by the parents or by the people around them, agents, directors, all that stuff, they're being abused.
Yeah. I would never have made that decision. I can't say because my kids are only like 6 and 2, but I can't imagine letting my underage kid go to the States. It's weird.
Yeah, I remember when I was 15, and I was a classical pianist from when I was like 6 years old, and I was like, one of those little Asian child prodigies, and I went to this summer camp that was this music festival. Basically, you had to like audition to get there, and I was playing in this trio with a cellist and a violinist, and we were like, after the concert was over, we were kind of giving like a smaller concert to the parents, and they were allowed to like take videos and photos. And there was this one dad who was like walking around us, the three of us, filming us, and my dad felt really uncomfortable. And this is like, there's no, this is not a sort of music festival where like there's press or anything like that, but just the idea of some dad that we didn't know who was like walking around and filming the three of us, and he was like trying to get all these shots. My dad was like stepped in and was like, this is very uncomfortable. And so I can't even imagine like as a 15-year-old going to some dude's apartment to take photos. Like there's no way in hell. Even if I was like wanting to do that as a 15-year-old, my dad would be like, no.
Well,
go cry as much as you want, but it's
not only that, but I wouldn't have allowed it if they were like, well, she's going to go by herself. No. I am not going to be open to any sort of accusation at all. Send her father, send her mother, send her godparents.
I'll give her parents the camera.
No, seriously, everybody.
It's
that's wild, man. I can't believe that. Okay. Let's switch the mood up and let's talk about Ye. Let's talk about Yeezy.
You mean our future president?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
That's right.
Well, how about we do this? Because we'll start with because we did get some questions for Shane, and they're related to Ye. So we can start off with the questions from Instagram. So let's look it up.
I am skeptical about Ye 24.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's something I can't quite get there
in terms of like it can't happen or what he said.
It can't happen.
Yeah,
like there's actually
the least of my problems.
Yeah, because there's a lot about Ye that I love. But there's one thing. Maybe you can add some color to this. I don't get Ye and Kim and Ye and the Kardashians. It always seems like chalk and cheese to me. And in a sense, I totally understand Ye's like his love for Kim and wanting to transform her, right? And I think that, we talk a lot about the masculine, the feminine dynamic, and how men at their core, they want to be the woman's portal to the world. And one of the things that Andrew Tate says, he says that's why men actually want a younger woman, not even necessarily because of the way that they look. Sure, like a woman at 20 years old is probably going to be more beautiful than like a 35-year-old woman, but it's deeper than that. It's that you want a virgin and a girl who hasn't traveled and gone to Dubai and gone to clubs because you want a pure innocence so that you can be her portal into the world. And so I always thought about Ye and Kim as like he wanted to be her portal. Into fashion, into art.
No pun intended.
Nice. Yeah. But you're right.
But then he was, but then I still like, I don't even like the Kardashian clan.
I think it was one of those like God challenges where the man who's obsessed with fame and how fame destroys the most famous he was set up with one of the most famous women to only to learn that it was horrible. I mean, it fell apart horribly. I mean, I'm sure he's sad. I'm sure he loves her to some degree. I honestly don't know, in some regard, just because she's the mother of their children. But it seemed like he had to face something so horrific. He seems to always face something so horrific. Like every few years, is something.
Right.
His mom, his career, the car wreck. I mean, there's a whole list of things, and unfortunately, it was just another thing. And it just kind of, he's the guy, in my mind, who constantly sees the worst in the world and wants to change it for the better. Unfortunately, that happened to be within his family, you know? And I hate the Kardashians. I never watched, as much as I love Kanye, I would never watch, even if he was on it. I'm not watching the Kardashians.
I tried to watch it.
I honestly also don't fully hate Kim. Like there's a lot I don't like about her, or most, but I'm like, I respect her trying to be a businesswoman.
I actually like Kim.
Yeah.
I think it's like, people think I'm crazy, but I like Kim.
There's certain things I feel about her where I'm just, I just don't trust her. This is totally speculation. I think they pay paparazzi to get on Ye's ass.
Okay.
I think they want problems.
They do.
That's just speculation.
Okay.
Right.
But those things happen. We have learned in the past that they do have a direct line to TMZ.
Yes, of course.
So if that's a thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe, and they know what pushes his buttons. Like clearly his kids.
Yeah.
So I think that just happened with the camera. I'm just like, my brain's always conspiratorial. Okay. It must have been them. But the whole fame thing, and like, he's always like wanted the fame, also hated the fame. He always talks about Michael Jackson, Prince. Fame killed them, more or less. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot others like that. You can look at Elvis, all these things that he always references, these geniuses in many regards. So I thought of the Kim thing as just a test for him to have to come to this horrible conclusion about how horrible Hollywood really is. And part of his presidency, I feel like, this is another just speculation. I wish I talked to this about him. But him kind of, I don't want to say he lost his kids, but he's not with them as much as he should.
Yeah.
As any father should. I almost had this and we know how his ego is. I'm almost thinking he wants to become president so he can be the father of his kids by making a country that is imposing the values that he needs, right?
Yeah.
So him and Nick are like manufacturing this like cathedral country. So his kids like have to live, under this, because I don't personally know how the relationship is with the kids, but when I was there was things I was just like, things that weren't in the story, but I'm just like, we're just talking about like being dads and just like, you gotta like figure the guidelines out with.
I just hope Bianca's the name of his new wife. Mm-hmm. I hope he has many more children.
Wait, you got married?
Yeah. She's pretty rad, I think.
Yeah.
She's an architect.
Yeah, all I know about her is that she's a beautiful architect. Yeah, that's all I know about her.
She's beautiful. She's Australian. She's an architect. Her designs are really interesting, and they're just like the things that he would like, because he's obsessed with like Corbusier. He loves that French architecture stuff, very minimal. She's into like the primitive futurist movement, which is like deconstructs all. I know I've lost your audience now, but they make sense to me. If you look at her designs and all that stuff, I'm like, that's perfect. So I hope it works out. I hope they have kids.
No, I mean, to be fair, I do like early mid-century. I love mid-century modern architecture. I like mid-century modern furniture. I don't necessarily care for like brutalist architecture, brutalist art. I'm not really a fan of that. But like Frank Lloyd Wright, I really like, and who else? Like the architects of that generation, I really do appreciate. Meyer. But here's the first question for you.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, I'm not going to reveal the name because I don't want to dox her. But ask him how it was to podcast with Green Girl, so I can post a clip.
I wonder who sent this message.
I know. I wonder who did that.
She was incredible. That was funny because I had the similar thought walking up to her place as I did with I'm like, am I going to get the mask? No mask. It was no mask at first.
Gina has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, she's like, what? I'm lost.
A friend of mine made the Instagram Ye's posts. So she's basically the archiver of Kanye's posts on Instagram. Oh. So it's a friend of mine. I don't want to go into like what she does, but I mean, because she doesn't really talk about herself on Ye's posts.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, so I don't want to dox her, but whenever she's in Nashville next, I want to get her to come onto the show.
She's really cool.
She's funny, and it's funny because when I was living in LA, I met her and I was single and I hit on her. I was at one of her, she's a comedian. I was at one of her shows. And at the end of it, I went up to her and I was like, you know what? I really can't stand female comedians, but you're pretty funny. And it also doesn't hurt that you're pretty. Like, that's what I said to her. And she was like, Yeah, no, me and you aren't going to work. And I was like, okay, cool.
That would have been awesome if it worked.
No, well,
Was she actually funny though, or were you just saying?
no,
that
she's funny.
Okay.
She's pretty funny.
She's funny. She's rad. She can hang. Like we can talk about crazy stuff. She allowed me to talk about clones and Ye and Elon and all that stuff. It was great. I love that podcast. We had a great time. We talked for I probably talked to her longer than she wanted to talk to me. I was just like, I'm ready to go. I'll talk about Kanye forever.
I just want to make a disclaimer here. I'm very happy that it didn't work out because I'm happily married and I love my wife. So if you're listening to this, babe, yeah, no, I know.
Yeah,
I thought about it, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, I'm glad you said it.
Because one day your daughter will see this.
Yes,
right.
That's right.
And then she wouldn't exist if things had gone well with
That's
LA
That's
comedian.
right.
Let's go from the start here. Okay, so why I always have a problem struggling with people saying their freaking names.
It's not a thoughts question, is it?
No.
Okay.
Can Ye win?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
How?
Good question, Gina.
Trying to think if I wrote this in the story or not. I think, first of all, I think a lot of us on both sides, if you even believe in sides anymore, realize that this whole system is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats and Republicans are trash, right?
Yeah.
And most other politicians, if not all. And we have flirted, not more than flirted, with the outsider becoming, not to say Trump's the absolute outsider, but he's a political outsider, and he kind of made it so I think anything could happen after that.
Mm-hmm.
People probably felt that way about Carter, Reagan, all these people.
I mean, Jesse Ventura, things
All
like that.
people.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Sonny Bono.
We mocked, everyone mocked Sonny Bono. You're right. People mocked Trump hard, never took him seriously. And then look what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take him seriously back then, the first time around. So I just am very skeptical anytime a mob forms on anyone and mocks them, because it's just, I don't like mob mentality. And I think, but sometimes they're right. Sometimes clearly there's some monsters out there. But I think for that's one part. I think also if he maybe does something like ballot harvesting, which I don't agree with, because I think the Democrats use it and I think it's kind of gross. But if he can...
that's what W was accused of, I think, in 2000.
Oh, yeah.
Harvesting.
Yeah, it's something I didn't even
remember.
know about until fairly recently. I don't understand how that even works.
Same.
But I guess it's legal in some ways, however that is. But if you're able to do that and you have a name like Ye and you can throw a concert or something.
Oh, no. That's how LBJ won his Senate seat in Texas, I think. I think he got that
because
by ballot
that's the
harvesting.
thing that I keep thinking about is the voting. The voting is just rigged.
Yeah.
The voting systems are totally rigged.
You can't trust the voting at all.
Well, Crystal and Saga were on Rogan, and they said that there's been no election fraud. Really, the only thing they can point to is one Republican in North Carolina who kind of fixed a local election, and then LBJ, and then John F. Kennedy. So no, there's no such thing as election rigging or falsifying election
I'm glad
results.
They cleared that up.
Yeah,
Clearly,
thanks, Crystal and Saga.
Crystal and Saga didn't read my article about Kerry Lake, and even though that court case was thrown out, but it's going back because they appealed it. To me, there was a ton of evidence of just weird things.
Mm-hmm.
Chain of custody that was broken, right? How do all these hundreds of thousands of things show up without chain of custody? So we can't prove that's fraud, but it's stuff where it's weird.
Fishy. There's fishiness.
It's weird.
There's fishiness.
And we should be distrustful of everybody. I also think in a weird way, whether he meant to do it or not, the I Love Hitler thing kind of reduced him to nothing in a world where there can be redemption for these people. We've seen Trump say the most ridiculous things and he became president, right? So it's like he almost was like, I'm just going to destroy, and anything now is building.
Right.
Anything he does. And if he comes back and he's been training and he's going to debate, if he can, he could do it. Imagine him on a debate stage.
I would love to see it. I mean, if you talk about
especially if Nick prepares him.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You know?
So here's the thing, and I was thinking about this. I said, if Trump, let's suppose Trump won, he would be brilliant to have someone like Candace be communications director for the White House, something like a who was the blonde
Kayleigh,
someone like a Kayleigh. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So if Kanye won, you'd have someone like Fick do that. That would be kind of crazy. That'd be crazy. Just seeing him watch on the podium and then doing this a lot. Well, that brings us into the next question: is what do you think about Fick Nuentes?
So I knew almost nothing about him, but I knew about you guys. And I was like, you were one of the first ones I watched to research. And this is in the days leading up to when Ye came out to do IRL.
Really?
So I just knew he was hated. I knew probably shouldn't be hated that much, but I just knew people really hate him.
Yes.
As you guys know.
Oh yeah.
So I knew nothing. So I watched both your podcasts with him, right? And a bunch of others, whatever I could find. It's a funny thing about censorship. when they hate someone, they make it harder for you to make a judgment, you know? And thankfully for you guys,
But
you
it's
make it a little
weird
easier.
because nothing other than like the throttling, the episodes weren't taken down,
Yeah.
I know.
which is kind
Yeah.
of weird.
I'm still to this day.
like
It's
a little worried.
strange.
I'm waiting.
come back
I'm
for
waiting.
you.
Yeah.
They come back for you. So I did a lot of my research
Well,
and I
now it's
listened to
gone.
him a lot. I was forming opinions where it was like, there's certain things I just don't agree with in terms of like, I personally, I forget where you guys stand on this, don't think every politician should be Christian. I do believe in free will. And we kind of talked about it. I don't want to say it's a debate, but we talked about it. I just shared my concerns. But I also understand why they would want that.
It's preferable.
It's preferable.
For
That's a
me.
better way
I
of saying
can't
it.
force, you know, the way our system is set up in our constitution. I can't force you to be Christian if you want to run for politics.
I can agree with that. But saying you want to implement the law, I just get a little uneasy with, because I just worry about how blasphemy laws will work. And then I worry about, we might agree with the person making the blasphemy laws now,
Yeah.
but who might be the next tyrant from the religion we all are a part of, and they're actually terrible, then they tweak the blasphemy laws and then we're stuck.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, you're not going to blaspheme on this show.
I'm about to start.
Oh, you better not. Off.
So,
Tyrant.
you know,
Fascist.
you know, I understand that appeal, but that was one thing, honestly. And
Yeah.
for the most part, I'm like, I walked away from my research with like listening to you guys, reading what I can about him, like real things. So this kid's super smart. And then I met him that night when he came with Ye, and we had a great conversation. This is a funny thing real quick about him. We're there. I walk up to him, just say, what's up? And there's a journalist that somehow popped up. She wasn't with us.
Okay.
She's just there like reporting on the thing. She walks up to introduce herself to Nick when I'm with him. He goes immediately, before even saying his name, "You wrote a bad article about me." And I didn't like
you?
it. To her.
Really?
I never wrote anything about him. And she was like, "No, I didn't. No, I didn't." And it was like, and then she left and we continued our conversation. Sure enough, she did. Like, we found it.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, I told him, I'm like, how?
He doesn't forget anything.
I'm like, everyone hates you. Like, so many people hate you. How do you remember all this stuff? And he's just got like a.
Yeah, Nick is, I mean, from what I know, I think he knows almost everything that has been written about him. He knows almost every clip that Media Matters
it
has
would
shared
have to
about him.
benefit him to know all that
Yeah,
stuff.
like he really researches how people talk about him, and I almost feel like he's like making notes. You know, the episode of The Office when Ryan's like the list.
Yeah.
Check. Like I think Nick's doing that.
I'm sure he is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
sure he
when he gets into a position of power, he's got this whole list of people who just didn't listen to him, who smeared him.
Trump did it. He knew people at like the National
right.
Review who he didn't like. Sometimes they write for the Post. He'd like it when they wrote for the Post, but not for the
Right,
National Review.
right. Oh, I get that's weird. It's after our first episode with him. My dad was like, "I really like that kid," and I was like, "Wow, if he got to like my dad, who's kind of like old boomer and a big Trump fan, but still like." Said
Look,
this stuff
honestly,
about
I'm not saying this because it's our show, but that first episode we had with Nick
Pretty
was
fire.
honestly
great.
one of the best interviews that I think Nick has ever done.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
number one, because we had no history.
Yep.
So he didn't come in feeling like a little bit nervous.
I thought he
or-
explained the Russia situation
Oh
really
my gosh,
well.
Yeah.
that clip, the Russia and Ukraine thing, he went on for like 7 straight minutes.
Yeah.
That I think helped a lot of people really understand what was going on in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And even more than that, he was so funny. He was talking about how he loves black music.
Right.
Yeah, that
And
was
like even
hilarious.
talking about like interracial marriage. Like it was just a great
He talked about Ye,
first time.
right? On the first
Yes, he did.
He said who his favorite artist was. I tell people not to look back at that episode because I lit myself horribly. So I look like a vampire. Like I'm so pale.
Oh, you'd look undead in that
right.
one.
Yes, exactly.
I
yeah.
like the background of that. That was.
Oh,
that
it's
was
Paul
green
McCartney
screen
with the
with the
gun.
gun.
Yeah,
That was cool.
maybe
That
I
was-
bring back the
Yeah,
green
that
screen.
was-
I don't know. Who
it was a
knows?
cool look. It was
You
a
never
cool look.
know.
Yeah.
But no, I thought he was super smart.
How did they get hooked up together?
Uh,
Was it Ali
Was it
did that,
Milo?
or was it
no,
Milo?
I think it was Milo. I think Nick reached out to Milo.
So okay, so what happened after Timcast?
Mm-hmm.
Milo all of a sudden, did he
After
just
they
do
ate the
that for
cookies.
publicity and that's it? And
we
he
still don't
just
know.
dropped him.
I asked them. They said it wasn't for publicity because we were thinking maybe they just were like, better than doing a whole show is to just walk off and get clicks in terms of like what they might have been.
No,
thinking.
no, I'm asking.
Oh, sorry.
Why Milo stopped working?
Oh,
with
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
It's odd. I had just met Milo for the first time like a week or two prior to the Ye thing. And I was always like, I liked Milo. I liked what he wrote. I thought he was interesting. And I hung out with him at Cassandra's house and had a really interesting conversation. He like was reading a book of mine. He's about to give me some brutal honesty, which I appreciate. In that conversation, he just got off the phone with Ye, asking him to work with him. And I'm just like, holy moly. I'm like one call away from Ye. In June of last year, I posted on Instagram, I'm going to interview Ye.
Really?
Yeah. And I like, so through Milo, I got out there. But by the time I got out there, I don't know what happened with them.
Okay.
Not sure. I talked to Ye. Ye said he loved him. but he wasn't there when I was there.
Right.
And when I was there, it was just Nick.
And that was about the time that Kanye, or not Ye, but Milo had mentioned that he, like the whole Trump meeting at Mar-a-Lago was just to get back at Trump or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
What was the rumor that was going around?
I don't know what was true. There was a lot of weird distortion with that story because everyone started saying different things from that camp. Nick loves Trump.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how I feel anymore. I did. I told Nick, I was like, you guys made Trump look super weak. Because the way he fumbled out
from
of
the
that,
meeting.
Yeah, the way he fumbled out of that situation was just not the Trump I would have preferred.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. But Nick was like, he kind of felt bad. He was
Yeah.
like, I didn't want to do that. Yeah, he said he loves Trump still.
Okay.
I don't know that they went in there to cause a problem.
Well,
So
certainly, I don't
know.
think Nick didn't, because Nick didn't even think he'd be, getting
Right.
into that dinner to begin
Right.
with. So
Right.
I think he was totally innocent in whatever happened in there. But
Yeah, my feeling is it was just a meeting, and then it just kind of blew up, and people started changing
Right.
the way we all looked at it.
Yeah.
okay, well, here's a question from the men's club. How did you meet Tim Pool?
Okay, so I won't. Oh, let's see, how far back do I go? I don't know him that far back, but I was a professor for a long time, an adjunct professor. It was terrible being inside the institutions, as I'm sure you guys understand. I was ready to leave. COVID happened. A lot of horrible things with the colleges. I had enough, and I told my students I was going to quit. And there was like, they wanted like, the colleges were just treating adjuncts terribly. There's like 300 adjunct professors out of 400 professors. None of
What
us
exactly
had.
is an adjunct professor?
An adjunct is someone who gets about $2,000 a semester from a class, works full time basically because you get multiple classes. You have no office, you have no health care, you have no promise of even coming back in the next semester. And then this
So
is
basically a
interesting.
temporary gig.
It's like freelancer. Yeah, it's kind of like you're a freelancer.
Wait,
So
2000 for the semester?
$2,000 a semester. I was making about $19,000 a year not that long ago.
What?
Okay.
And I was a furniture mover at the same time. We were rough.
Yeah.
I mean, we were kind of living out of a car. Not really, but we had so many different jobs traveling between Brooklyn and where we grew up in the Hudson Valley. We were all over the place. So we were rough. And I thought I had this dream of like, I'll be a professor, even though the institution is rotted. I want to be a professor. I like teaching writing. I like talking about ideas. So that ended and I had nothing lined up. This is like lockdown time. It's lockdown time. My wife had just been fired for not having the vaccine. We had no job. We had just closed on a house, our first house.
Yeah.
We had nothing. And I'm just gonna say 6 months prior, about 6 months prior, I didn't really listen to IRL all that often. I listened to Tim's like earlier segments when he does those like shorter videos, just him and the news. Never really listened to IRL that much, but here and there. One night, my wife and I got into a fight about money. We're broke, we're scared. And that's 6 months prior to me leaving college. I turned on IRL and Tim goes, we're looking for a writer to write like mysteries and true crime. And I'm like, oh, that's what I do as a freelancer. I was a furniture mover, professor, and a freelance writer.
Yeah.
And not making a lot of money. And I was like, that's what I do. Is I was investigating a lot of weird things. So I sent in a resume and some stories that I'd written. Never heard anything back. Months go by. I quit teaching. Nothing lined up. A week or two later, I get an email from Tim Pool. And it was like, you want to come out? It was like one sentence. It was like, you want to come to West Virginia? I thought it was probably fake, but I said yes. Went down there and met him and his girlfriend and hired that night.
Really?
And
Wow.
been pretty cool ever since. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was like we started off just me doing like articles once a week about interesting like weirder stories. It was more like paranormal stuff, which I'm interested in, but like I like thinking about it in like a psychological way, and true crime stuff. And then that turned into me writing books, and then it morphed into what I'm doing now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, here's something going back to what you mentioned. I probably had the camera on me while you were talking because I'm doing the switching today, folks. So this was something that you said earlier about how you manifested interviewing Ye.
Mm-hmm.
So someone wants to know, this is Longacres. If you believe you manifested your Ye interview, what will you manifest next in your career?
Oof, in my career.
That's actually a
great
good question.
I know, that's a great question. I just want to keep
Thank you,
writing. Yeah, that's a great question. I want to keep writing interesting profiles on people. Hopefully they're not all completely stressful. I told Cassandra on the way here, I was like, next story I write, I want it to be about like flowers growing in a garden. I'm like, I just need to chill. But I love writing profiles on people. I like to continue writing like kind of very complicated, very long. It's unfortunate for a lot of the illiterate people on Twitter who hate long articles, but that's just what I write.
Can you contractually, are you able to, like, let's say if like, you ever wrote something for the Atlantic, or Vanity Fair. Could you do something like that if you wanted
Probably
to?
could. I would never write for those places.
Right.
They are horrible, wicked institutions. I did write for the Atlantic.
Oh, really?
They're terrible. Their editors are trash. They always try to interject our politics in the slightest of ways in your sentences, which really piss me off. I will never write for those places unless there's some beautiful deal, and I can get carte blanche, do whatever I want. I am working right now at a website. I can say whatever I want.
Yeah.
Even if Tim disagrees with it, right? Like he wasn't a fan of Ye. He wasn't happy with how that thing went down to a degree. He thought it was funny, but I can pretty much do whatever. Like, I don't think he read what I wrote now, and the last few paragraphs of the story that just came out is going to cause a problem.
You think so?
Yes. I started a war today that will probably have to end on Friday or tomorrow.
Really?
We'll talk about it later.
Oh, boy.
But it's, and I don't name names, but I'm just very upset with how people treated this whole situation with Eliza, that is.
Sure.
And I just had enough. So I kind of snapped. But I want to just keep writing articles that are complicated about how we are living today, how we're godless and immoral and depraved, and but not just like those big themes. I want to use like some interesting person as the vessel through those stories. So that's what I would like to do.
Are you attracted to screenplays at all?
I flirted with it.
Okay.
Haven't written any yet, but I've tried. I like the form. I love just dialogue.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. Okay. Another question. Let's see. You did touch on Project Sage wants to know if you met Bianca. So did you meet Bianca? Okay. You didn't. Okay.
No. This is funny though. I'll say this: the second day with Ye, when I'm sitting in his in his hotel room while he's making music, he wrote 2 songs that in that period, and like we were probably together 5 hours in that period. The one song is one I kind of helped write lyrics for. I guess I did. I don't know if that was ever used, but who knows? The other one, which was released and then censored off of Instagram, was called Bianca Sensori.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
So something was happening. I wasn't privy to it, but something was clearly in the air.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something was brewing.
That's right.
All right. Let's Be Rad has a good question. What's Ye's day-to-day like from an outsider's perspective? Or at least while you were there?
Yeah. Well, it was cool to see him on a Sunday. So I'll say he's just a workaholic. He's always constantly working, and he's working on multiple things at the same time at a very high level. It's a multitasking that made me tired at the end of the day.
Yeah,
like being with him, talking about, like, we're talking about politics. He's looking at clothes on the floor. He wants this kind of food. He's thinking about this. He hears something that makes him think of a lyric. He's thinking where that beat is, all this wild stuff. Meanwhile, he's talking to his dad. He's talking to this person. But I got a full day with him on a Sunday, which was great because we planned to go to church together. So I went to Bible study with him. It was just...
What kind of church does he go to?
I forget what it was. It was a Christian church.
But it's a non-denominational thing, right?
I don't even know if I can say that. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
It would have to be.
If you
It
go on,
would have to be.
Yeah.
yeah, if you go on like TMZ, they've found him there.
Okay.
You can probably find like whatever church that is.
What
But
did
it was
he
a fun
eat for
church.
lunch that day? I was wondering when I read that. I was like,
I think it was like chicken and fries.
okay, I was
Well, there was a video of someone filming him while he was eating like Chinese food. It
When
was
he
just
out
him by
us.
himself. Oh, really?
When he came to like the West Virginia area after the airport, I
He was
think
eating
he was filmed
hibachi.
at- Yeah, hibachi. Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah, he was eating hibachi with
Yeah.
Nick and Milo.
It was hilarious.
And
photo.
and people in the hibachi restaurant were taking photos of him, and Ye he was just looking
he
really
had it.
tired. He looked
Yeah.
like he had it. And somebody tweeted this really funny thing about how Ye used to be like in the club with somebody, and now he's like eating hibachi with Nick Fuentes with a white nationalist.
That picture was hilarious. Yeah, some of the people I work with are in that picture.
Did he ever qualify to you if there was any sort of resistance in him working with Nick from anybody around him or the people that were involved with his businesses because they really don't have anything to do with politics, didn't know any better?
I never really got that feeling, but the first day I was with him, I was in like their headquarters. So it was like people who've been working with him forever. And I was curious like how they were reacting. Everyone got along really well.
Yeah.
All types of people who, from like interviews I knew had been with Ye for a while. And there was really, the one guy gave his laptop to Nick for a little bit to do something. And it was just very pleasant. I'm sure he heard stuff from people.
Yeah.
I don't think Pusha was very happy with it. We've seen him distance himself, which is like one of the saddest things for me. Because Pusha T always was like with him, no matter what.
Right. Well, it's funny. It's like if you sit down and if you would have to really have, in order to get an informed opinion about Nick, you really have to sit and you would have to watch hours upon hours upon hours of Cozy, because a lot of the clips that you do see of him are out of context.
Yeah.
If I think some of the realest, and this is not bragging or anything, but I think the most genuine moments of Nick were like on our show, where it's just two people that really don't know too much about him are just talking to him.
And we're totally open to him,
Yeah,
which is
I
rare
think
for
so.
him.
Yeah. And
Like,
you have to have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because he's got a great sense of humor.
I think so. We're having Jimmy Dory on the show
Oh, cool.
in April,
Yeah.
and he's probably said some things because he talks about like online trolls and stuff like that. But Jimmy seems to be like an open-minded leftist, and I think he and Nick would probably have a really good conversation
Ooh,
if they
yeah.
were able to just sit down and talk to each other.
Right.
Because
Great
there's
talk.
a lot of stuff that Jimmy Dory hates that Nick would probably hate as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be like if Jimmy, if you're out there watching, like
I would love to watch that talk.
that'd be great.
Yeah, you guys gotta set that up. Dang.
That would
Well,
be
yeah.
fun.
Well, it's actually fun that we got that one.
Yeah, no, Jimmy's pretty
I
cool.
still can't believe we landed that. I'm like so nervous about
Well,
that
that's
one.
due to my persistence. So
Yes.
thank
No, he'll
me.
be cool. He got a lot of flack for the vaccine stuff, right?
Yeah.
He came out and said things have happened to him. So
Mhm. Well, that Russia stuff.
yeah,
A lot of election stuff, and
Yeah.
he's just, let's see. All right, let's be Brad is actually a bunch of questions, but let's see. Would you interview him again, no matter how bad the backlash?
absolutely.
Oh, no context. Don't.
Backlash.
Yeah.
That's the name of my new band. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Blacklash would be
Yeah.
awesome for
Yeah.
like a hardcore.
Let's
band.
do it. I would love to. I would love to. That could be another answer for the previous question. Just follow his campaign trail.
Yeah.
If it were to happen.
Well, listen, we have Shane on the show. I texted. Oh, who did I text? I think I did text Nick. I was like, "Can you ask Ye if you want someone to document it photographically, like anything that happens? Like, let me know." I'm not whoring myself out, but it's what I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. So let
That'd
me
be
know, Nick.
great.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Where would you rank that experience? This is from Let's Be Rad. One more question from Let's Be Rad. Where would you rank that experience?
All right. Wedding, kids, and then it's probably soon after. You know, it was. I had never had such a surreal experience in my life. You know, outside of the seeing your child be born, outside of leaving a church with your wife, it was just so bizarre. I have been the person defending him to all my friends forever. And I feel like I truly understood him. I might just be psychotic, but I really did understand what he's doing throughout his whole career. And then it was just like so interesting that at the point when even my closest friends who had turned on him with the whole Hitler thing, and I don't think they really got the Alex Jones stuff,
Right.
they've now lost. And now I felt like the last one, you know?
Really?
And now I'm given the chance to go talk to him and then finally make my case on a bigger platform.
Right.
And then just get to hang with him. I got to see him rap his own songs in his car. Cool. I saw the Pacific Ocean for the first time from his apartment, you know? Or
What's
hotel
your
room.
favorite album?
Whatever album I happen to listen to from him. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
them all. You know,
Yeah.
I Watch the Throne was something I liked, but never really listened to after like the initial listen. But then when I was with him in the car after church, he put on Watch the Throne, and hearing it with him in the car had amazing speakers, and the way the car was just racing through the Hollywood Hills. That's all I want to listen to now.
Was he driving?
No, he was a
Okay.
driver, a really cool guy. So it was incredible. Like, so
Imagine
now,
that experience.
Oh,
That's
man.
amazing.
he was going through the songs, and then he skipped, I think, Murder to Excellence. I was like, that's a good song. He was like, oh, do you want me to hear it? Did you want to hear it? I was like, no, you do you. And he was like, I just want to hear the ones no one ever listens to. And he just starts rapping like awesome songs that now I love that I wasn't the most fond of prior.
Okay.
But probably Yeezus and
Yeezus is
808s.
my favorite.
I go back to Jesus is King a lot. I love like the song Yeezus Gospel. But it depends. Whichever one's on tends to be my favorite.
Did I tell you my story with him? And
remind me though.
Okay, so it was 2012. I was in the studio with Justin in New York,
Right.
and he was in a neighboring studio in the same building. This is 2012, so he's making Yeezus at this point.
Wow.
I don't know if I'm going to get in any trouble for saying this, but no NDAs were signed, but whatever. So he comes in, and I mean, he's probably, it was Justin, his road manager, Kenny, and I think was Josh working with him at the time. I think Josh was his the guy that ran Pro Tools and everything like that. And then there was another producer, his name Cuck Harrell. And Usher was there one of those days, but I don't think it was that day. But Kanye came in, and he came in with a laptop, and they talked for about an hour, and I was in there. So I was in the room of maybe like 6 people. I was one of those people. And he started playing songs, like stuff that was going to come off of Yeezus.
Wow.
And then he said, you guys want to hear something? So he put something on, and it's a song that he had coming out with Michael Jackson. And this was before, I think this was before Michael Jackson died.
Wow.
So he's like, yeah, this is probably going to be on either Michael Jackson's next album or his album.
Holy crap.
So I don't know, like if you ever reach out to him and be like, I talked to a guy that was in the studio when you played a song with you and Michael Jackson on it.
That's incredible.
So
Man, I love to hear that.
they were talking, and somehow the Beatles came up, and he was talking to Justin about like rivalries in music, but like friendly, creative rivalries.
Right.
And he was talking about Sgt. Pepper. And he was like, yeah, you know, it was, you know, came off of this rivalry. And I said, oh, you know, the Beach Boys. I like chimed in. I was quiet the whole time. And he was like, he's just looking at me, and Justin was like, what do you mean? And I said, well, you know, the Beach Boys put out this album, Pet Sounds, which was influenced by this album called Revolver. No, that was influenced by Rubber Soul.
You're right.
So the Rubber Souls, and then Pet Sound came out, and then Pet Sounds influenced like Revolver and Sgt. Pepper. So if you didn't have like the Beach Boys and the Beatles in this like little mild rivalry, you might never have had Pet Sounds or Sgt. Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
And Justin was like, oh, interesting. I was like, yeah, you should listen to both of them.
Yes.
And Kanye's like, who's that? And
Wow.
Justin's like, oh, that's my photographer. He's like,
That's great.
he's like, when he talks, you should listen to him.
That's great.
And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Because I think they were talking about like doing psychedelics while like making music.
Right.
And, you know, that whole era of music.
So
it was
Pet
insane.
Sounds is one of my favorite records of all time.
I can't stand it.
Oh, I love it. When my wife walked down the aisle to God Only Knows.
I'm a Sunflower guy.
Oh man, I love God. God Only Knows is one of the most beautiful.
Well, that's what we
songs to
share.
me.
Hands up, because
Yeah.
my wife walked down the aisle to Forever.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
And my kids were born in that song too. I love it. I don't like the Beach Boys so much as I like Brian Wilson.
Right. So, yeah. Okay.
You know, I think
yeah.
he's fascinating.
Mike
And
Love kind of sucks.
Yeah. Oh, he way sucks.
Yeah.
Big time.
Gina's face of Gina. Like,
I
what are
still
they
can't believe
talking
you were
about?
in the car and he was rapping his own songs. That is so surreal.
Oh, and it was Jay-Z's birthday.
Oh, okay.
So that's, I think, he heard a Curtis Mayfield song on the radio. I think that triggered him to be like, I have a sample of Curtis Mayfield on Watch the Throne. Then he's listening to it. He must be thinking about Jay-Z. I asked him later on, before I even knew it was Jay-Z's birthday, like, are you still friends? And he was just like, he didn't look up from his phone. He just said no. It was very sad. You know, not that I don't give a shit about Jay-Z.
Right.
But it was sad. You know, he
What
lost
was the
a friend.
song that had the Curtis Mayfield sample?
I forget.
I'm not. It wasn't Otis.
No,
'Cause
it's
Otis was Otis
it's
Redding.
a great song, but it was awesome. It was funny hearing him like think about it and then just going on this tangent, rapping all the songs. I'm glad he heard the song because it worked out for me. I got to hear him rap all the time. And
He gave me his email.
why-
He gave me his email after that too.
Are you serious?
I showed him my Tumblr. I was like, yeah, this is what I do. And he was like, oh, here's my email. And it's a like you could figure out the email. It was a really easy email. I'm like, that's your email? And he was like, yeah.
That's hilarious. I can't find the song. I forget, but it
I'll look. I'll
might be
look
like
it up
the
later.
last song on Watch the Throne.
Okay.
Maybe. I'm not sure though.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That must have been like just such a, you know, surreal. That would be like, I don't know, if I met, you know, if I was able to hang out with like Terrence Malick for a day or something
cool.
like that.
Terrence Malick is
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. That'd be awesome. Yeah, there's really no one I would have ever cared to meet in terms of like celebrity.
Yeah.
I don't like celebrities. You know, I like a lot of musicians. I like a lot of artists. No one who I'm like, you know, maybe if I met David Lynch, I like David Lynch films and stuff, but I wouldn't go out of my way.
Yeah,
Right.
because I remember you wrote in part one, you were like, I'm just not into celebrity culture.
I don't
Yeah.
care. I think it's pretty gross.
How did you ever talk to Nick about how he felt about working with him? Because I mean, the guy says he's his favorite artist.
We both had a moment, I think at the end of the first day, we were just like, this is crazy for both of us. You know, we were like,
Yeah.
wow, it's so bizarre.
Yeah,
We're just
especially
chilling.
after everything that Nick went through over the last few years. It's just like, I mean, vindication is not even the right word.
Yeah, it's
Well,
beyond.
still going through it because he's still locked out of being able to bank with people.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of that he said is getting better, I thought.
Okay.
I think he did say that. I think the no-fly list is gone now.
Yeah,
It is.
that's what.
Oh,
when
maybe
he-
that's what I'm thinking of.
Well,
It's just
yeah.
no-fly
So
That's
list.
why he first came to our show.
no, the first time he drove, and then the second time he flew in.
The second
Oh
time
my
is when he
goodness.
got off
Yeah.
of the no-fly list.
That's
and
right.
You asked him if he got a plaque
right.
for the no-fly
I was like, you
list.
should frame it at
Yeah,
least.
that's
You know
right.
what I mean?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That would be a great plaque. They sent you something in the mail. Yeah. No fly.
So here's the last question that we got from the Instagram questions, but it has to do with Eliza again. So this question comes from looks like a little Pepe. Bench or choke. Okay. Did Eliza Bleu do anything to actually help women that were trafficked?
I would say so. She's, as an advocate, privately and publicly, she spends a lot of time going out to help women either break away from those situations, help them understand what kind of situation it might be in. She's like, talks about like not telling someone they've been trafficked. It's like, you can be like, it sounds like you might have been, but you don't have to identify that way kind of thing. Cause that's kind of how it happened to her. Cause she had no language for trafficking. It was like, not,
That's why I asked about the definition before.
right. She thought she was a child prostitute when she was 17. And she said she never wanted to tell anybody this because she just thought she was a child prostitute. She thought she did something illegal. Right.
Oh.
So it wasn't until she was rescued, like the second time in her 30s, and she goes to a safe house and they tell her this. So she kind of does what these other women do with these safe houses. They scour reports, they look for like, you know, missing children stuff, and they blast that out. They're kind of making sure people are looking, whether it's authorities or people in whatever area they know about it. Goes out to safe houses, constantly like fielding phone calls from women, wanting to help them. Either maybe there's a lawsuit there, you know, maybe
this is her personally doing this, like personally helping out.
I think that's her job.
Okay.
I think that advocacy
she's like
work
full on advocate
is her
now.
job.
Okay.
Yeah. And she was doing that privately for years until the Daily Wire article,
right,
which she kind of had to come out.
Well, it makes sense because listen, who would be the best sort of abortion advocate or anti-abortion advocate? It was probably a woman who has had abortions in her life, right? Like that would probably, I mean, it wouldn't make the best anti-abortion advocate, but it would make sense that someone would turn into that. So
how old is she now?
41.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she looks young.
Mid or late 90s when the LA thing happened.
Wow.
Like I think Cobain had just been dead a few years. There was like a thing with the hospital.
That was like 94 that he died, or something, like 93 or something.
Yeah. I think, yes, it was like 2 or 3 years after that.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. Dark.
It is pretty dark.
It's really dark. I wish I'd never heard these stories, honestly. There's like, not just from her, but just all the ladies I talk to who do this for a living, and like, you know, stuff that is now I think about all the time. I can't help but go out and see like a random dude being like a dick to a girl. I'm like, oh, what's going on? Like, not, I would usually be mad,
right?
But now it's like, what else is? So it's kind of affected me. Like I gotta like rein this in, but yeah, it's gotten under my skin for sure.
Well, I just wanted to say, because you said earlier Nick Cage, I'm looking at him from profile, and I'm saying Jim Caviezel.
That's another good one, because he
that's-
seems like a combination. That's
Yeah,
a really
that's
good
probably,
one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So let's sort of wind down this episode of I'm Doing Great and talk about the war that you talked about, because you said you were going to talk about it a little bit
absolutely.
later. So tell us what you mean by that you started a war that might have to end on tomorrow or
I'd
Friday.
like to end it with my third story. That doesn't mean the attacks won't stop, but I'll have said my piece and then I'm done.
Okay.
I think there's an engine of hate operating on Twitter and places like Instagram that starts an idea. They sow seeds of doubt in people. We've seen this happen to everyone, you know, and you might know them personally sometimes and be like, that's not true. Anyway, these seeds are planted, and then real people or people who aren't with the seeds, you know, take it on, make it their thing. There's a lot of them, you know, sitting in front of webcams doing these like pseudo intellectual pole dances in front of all of us making all this money as people super chat them as they just talk about Eliza's ass, right? Which is just ridiculous. You know, I think that's ghoulish. So I just these people have kind of unleashed their audience on me, you know, for the past week or two. They didn't explicitly say that, but that's what's happened. They have been nonstop live streaming Eliza, which is just ridiculous. Like, even if she lied, it doesn't warrant this insane like destruction orgy that I've been like unfortunately a part of, because I, you know, did the story and then it was made public. So I just kind of called them out, and I think they're not going to be happy. I go in, you know, they were reading my articles on their live streams. So I'm very interested to see where this goes, and maybe they'll just ignore it because they don't want to have to come to the terms with, you know, whether or not they're wrong or right doesn't matter. I just think people need to be very aware that the quote unquote right or the quote unquote anti-establishment or the moral authority is not immune to a mob. And we saw a mob assemble, and these like godless freaks with their YouTube channels spent 2 weeks reining in all this money talking about something that I don't think they fully understand. It's fine to talk about anything. It's great to question things. You should do it. Question Eliza into oblivion. I don't care. I did. But I have never been so disgusted with these people. Everyone, literally everyone. It's people that I thought I liked.
Really?
That now I'm just, they're done. They're done. They have redemption. People can be redeemed, but I'm just seeing the way people react. It was, I don't like terms like white pill, black pill. I hate words like woke and, you know, social justice warrior. They just like minimize everything that's very complicated in this stupid.
I'm
like,
even sick of words like based and cringe.
All
I'm
those
so
words.
sick of them.
All those words, like I try not to use them.
I say them.
And it's fine, but I try not to put them in my stories.
Right.
Because they're words that are fleeting.
Right.
And these people are just like these temporary, fleeting content creators. There's a difference between a content creator and people who want to like interview people, you know, interviewer or journalist. And these people like pretend to be journalists, but it's a facade. and they just want to have your name in their mouth, right? They care about fame. They worship being looked upon. That's why they start these wars with people. They say, you know, out of one side of their mouth, they'll say, I don't want to start a war. And the other side of the mouth, they'll say something heinous, right? And I hate that kind of behavior.
He writes, these people are digital cannibals. They care more about their names getting lumped into stories the same way tumors grow in a body. They worship fame. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something, outrage culture is just as insidious on the right.
At a certain point for me, the story just is beyond Eliza. Like, honestly, I think she's done good stuff. Oh, and that other question, she did work with Elon to give him ideas on how we can maybe get child porn off Twitter.
Right.
You know,
right.
That's pretty awesome.
That's huge.
So, and now these people, these like godless freaks on their YouTube channels, they've done this leftist thing, this language like gymnastics where they say, if you even say she's done good work, you're like with her, you're bad. I'm like, fuck you. Like, that's insane to think that. If she lied, that sucks. That would personally hurt me because I do like her. I think she's a nice person, but it's beyond the lies now. Now we've seen 2 weeks of this insane character assassination, smear campaign, whether or not it's rooted in them pretending to be genuine and having genuine questions, which I don't think they do. I think they really they don't care about any answers or the truth. They care about having their name in my mouth. And I will not say their name.
Oh, really?
Because I think they're trash.
Do you think that you could be making yourself into a victim?
I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care. Things that have said about me and my family, I'm pretty chill. This book I published last February is called The Fucking Lunatic. And it's real conversations I had with friends on Instagram or Twitter, like long threads about these people who were so into medical tyranny and so into censorship. And while writing that book, kind of like in real time, I had my own friends say horrible things about me. I tend to see those types of attacks, these hateful words, as nourishment for me to just be my best self. And I use a lot of those as blurbs for my book. You know, even the one guy who was in the army who said I should be droned to death, you know. Whatever.
Sounds like a stable individual, yeah.
Yeah, well, he's in the army, so that's no offense to the army. I grew up on a military base, but that guy's a prick. So I did go into this knowing and having those conversations with my wife saying, like, they're going to say all these things. It's horrible. But seeing how nefarious it is and how sinister it is, and like these guys pretend to be like the moral authority and they have like a clear-eyed view of everything and they're telling me how to write the story. And I say in this story, it just came out, like, I'm obviously emotional. Like, I've been hearing crazy shit. My wife has to hear this shit, right? She's not even on Twitter, but they're finding her on Instagram, you know? Yeah. And it's just like, it's so brutal. So I try to be very open and honest about, yeah, it's getting to me, but it's not going to like stop me.
There's a line, right? There's a line when it comes to your family.
There's a line. I also like, if you can say whatever the fuck you want,
right?
And I'm fine, you know. But like when it's the mob that started, and then it got so insidious. So what really is when I snapped is when I'm with Eliza on the last day, and all these famous people on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, they're sharing a news article. It says Elon Musk unfollowed Eliza, right? I was like, damn, that's a big deal. I'm like, she just had, like, in that moment, told me how, you know, she was kind of done with Twitter, I'm like, are you just saying that because like all of this? And then I'm like, Elon unfollowed. I said, are you saying that because Elon unfollowed you? And she goes, he never followed me. I said, really? That doesn't make sense. And we looked it up. There's like some bots on Twitter. You can see they tracked Elon's follows. As far as I can tell, he never followed her, right? I still can't prove that. In the thing, I'm like, Elon, if you read this, please confirm, because I don't know. But to the best of my ability, he didn't follow her. Maybe I'll be wrong. Yeah. But when I started seeing that, it was like everything that started coming out at that point just seemed fake. And then they're running with these things that if I can't prove it just yet, like, and that story just came out and then you just made an hour-long video about it, it's ridiculous. So it's like turning into something way more nefarious and abstract. And I think those people who I mentioned, who I lumped into this idea of them being like a tumor on our bodies, they're like useful idiots. And I don't think they realize they are. They think they're the good guys, and sometimes they are. Some of those people are right a lot of the time. I've watched plenty of them.
I'm interested and then not interested to know who these people are, though I don't really care at the end of the day.
I just always, and we've always talked about this, I've always had a thing for people who launch any sort of campaign against one person in particular. They want to pick a fight with somebody, you know, and I just always find that to be a little bit sus.
Well,
you know?
people
like,
wanted us to talk about Nicole Arbor and Candace, and we were like, we're not going to even address
and like
that.
Another YouTuber came after me. I'm just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not interested.
Yeah, with me, it's like, I don't want to write this type of story. Like, it was interesting at first, before the whole thing. Okay, profile on someone who had a pretty shitty life. I'll do it. Fine. But then turn to this, and it was like this new challenge. And then it became like, my goal is to just make a blueprint so we can hopefully, like, maybe no one reads it, so who knows. I want to be able to make sure everyone, like, on this side where we like are trying to have morals and talk about God and try to have this idea of like moving forward and making a better future for our kids, that we can hopefully observe and like examine these mobs and not join them. So like so flippantly, like it was so fast. And for what? You know, I just had questions. I think that's fair to have questions, but I was just disgusted.
Well, it's some of these people's livelihoods, right? Like if this sort of drama ceases, they have nothing to talk about, and then
that's pretty sad life.
It is.
If that's your livelihood, talking about YouTube drama.
Oh, well, it's a lot of people's channels. Yeah.
I know.
It is. And that's why I think a huge advantage we had when we started the show is that we're both married and have kids.
Yeah.
It's like that. I think that has really grounded us, because I see a lot of other content creators, they find meaning in getting into fights with people.
Right.
And it just diminishes everything that we talk about on a broader scale.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think it worked in our favor that like we came into the show with level heads, and we're like, look, we got families. Like all this drama does not interest us.
Yeah, I don't like it. It's stressful. It's anxiety.
It's not worth it. I don't like being in this world. I don't like being confrontational. Right. I don't like writing stuff like that. You know, like I would rather not. That is how I feel, and I am 100% behind that. You know, as much as I don't like starting or saying anything derogatory, although I have, you know, but I'm not perfect. But like I think about like Milo and Nick would talk about things about creating legacy, and you know, my story will just live on the internet maybe forever, or it will die. But when I write the stories, I want them to hopefully go into the future, and maybe someone will change their mind about a certain topic. These people are fleeting. Like you talking about YouTube drama all the time. It's yesterday. You live in yesterday. I'm trying to live in the future, right? And I just want people to see that. I'm not saying you should stop listening to these people. Go listen to, everyone should go subscribe to all the people you think I'm talking about.
Right.
That's awesome, because sometimes they're right. And they probably sell a lot of cool stuff. But that's just, for me, it's worthless.
People are going to think that now we're against whoever he's talking about, but I don't even know.
We don't even know.
Who he's talking about.
It's better that I didn't
got no idea.
Now it's worse, I guess, I didn't name him, because it could be anybody.
Right.
Oh,
Now you're really
So they're going to make it about them.
Sorry, guys. I have this problem of like going on podcasts.
I mean, I don't mind it, but they should know beforehand that we don't really respond to, because we've had some controversial things that have been said on our show, and we've had reaction videos made on our videos, and people talking negatively about us, and our fans will send us, hey, have you seen this? And I click to see what it is, and I said, no, I'm not interested in responding to that, or I'm not interested in talking to that, because if those creators didn't even reach out to us to kind of get our point of view, or to even invite us on to debate them, then what am I going to do?
You know, it's fine if we want to talk, because like I've heard you guys talk about different people at Daily Wire, stuff like this, and that's an interesting conversation, because it's like, what's the content we're doing? What are we building? What are they saying they're building? And there can be interesting conversations in all this. Clearly, I wrote too many pages about this story, but there's no substance to that in terms of me. To me, it just seems like it's completely to be to gain followers, subscribers, sell whatever you're selling, and that's fine. I'm not trying to stop you. I'm just trying to say that's how I see it.
It's at a weird point, because I think we don't see people, online personalities, as human beings. It's almost weird in a way, because I know, there's probably someone who, I don't think this person would be talking negatively about you. I don't think, but we had him on our show. It was our 50th episode. I don't think it's Destiny. I don't want to name Destiny or whatever, but it was something like that, where I would watch his stuff, and he would do some of the drama stuff, but he would also do the political stuff. And I was like, you know what? Let me invite him on our show. Let me see if he's a real person. And he was, and we had a great conversation. I may not agree with Tim Pool on a number of things, but if he was ever like, hey, do you want to come on our show? I want to get to like know what you guys talk about. I'd be like, that's interesting. I would do it. Same thing with Daily Wire. Same thing with Blaze. I don't have to enjoy everybody who's on those things, but I would be more than willing to talk to them.
This is what I told every student on the first day of class. You have to talk to people you don't agree with all the time to write a more complex story, because it builds the immune system of your whole ideas and your beliefs. If you never experience any pushback on any of your opinions or whatever, your immune system of your ideas and beliefs will die once it enters the real world.
That's why people literally throw up when they can't handle a conversation. We were
Literally.
talking to a trans girl.
Yeah.
She literally threw up because the conversation made her uncomfortable because
Right.
she was never challenged before
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
And it not that I'm worried for the future of our country, but I genuinely am. Like my daughter's generation, the generation, would it be above or below? Below us, I guess Gen Z or whatever. Like, I'm scared about how they're going to react in the real world to controversy and to conflict because as it is right now, I don't think that they're mentally tough
they're
enough.
not equipped. No.
No, we have to do the job with our kids.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like we have to put the armor on them and send them out into the world, and you know, they have to experience all that, and hopefully they can do it at a better pace than the kids today.
Let's talk about something before we get out of here because I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I guess we landed a very big guest at the end of the month. I'm not going to say who, but he's a religious guest, and you and I have spoke about religion every now and then.
Yep.
You're are you discerning, or you're just floating out there in the ether? You don't know where you want to land yet, right?
No, I was in the ether for a while. I was raised Jewish, had a bar mitzvah. My dad's Catholic, my mom's Jewish. After the bar mitzvah, just kind of like atheism, just militantly atheist. Just didn't care. I thought it was ridiculous.
It's the path for a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to mock it, but it goes in with what we've been saying a lot today. Is like you kind of have to experience that darkness and then hopefully grow out of it. So what happened? My wife, her and I went on a first date, and at that point, this is like maybe 12 years ago. Our first date was a debate about abortion. At the time, I'm like, yeah, abortion. Like why? And she's Christian, you know, raised by a single mom. Probably would have been aborted if her mom wasn't Christian. And I'm just like, I'm sick to my stomach. I'm like, oh, this girl's beautiful. I love her, but she's like she's anti-abortion. Like, you know, so I was like having this cognitive dissonance, and I was like, I don't want to be with her. Thankfully, she like hit me over the head, and, you know, I've come a long way. And then I was, you know, after seeing my son born, this sounds cliche, but it's true. Is like, he was in NICU for a week, and that was terrible. You know, seeing him in that glass cage, your wife can't breastfeed properly because he's hooked up to all these machines. And I feel compelled to walk. We're in Manhattan. Well, we lived in Brooklyn at the time, but we were in Manhattan. I was like, I'm just going to walk to every church I can. You could only have 2 visitors in the NICU at a time. So whenever my mom or her mom would come, it'd be mom and my mom, or Nancy and her mom. So I'm just walking, I'm just sitting in churches, feeling like an immense peace. And I was like, kind of rejecting it because I don't think I like this, you know, but it just felt like what I had to do. I even tried praying for my son probably like halfway through that week, and I just felt like a fraud. It just didn't feel good. That kind of maybe pushed me towards agnosticism. And I will say like this real quick, a little before my kids being born, I was getting tattooed. I used to manage a tattoo shop in New York.
Which one?
It's called Graceland Tattoo.
Okay.
And our friend Hunter Spanks, he's a great guy from Baltimore, came to tattoo. And I'm just looking at him like, this is like, you know, a punk rock guy. We're not going to talk about God. We somehow talk about God. And he says, I'm an idiot for not believing in God. And it kind of was like, huh, interesting. And like hear his whole perspective. So like these little things are happening. Then big things like my kid, you know, getting married. It was important for both of us to have, you know, Nancy's like, we wanted a priest, but he wouldn't marry us because me having been Jewish at the time. So whatever. But then, you know, after our second, I guess 2 years ago, it dawned on me like, I need to just go to church. I just felt like I want my kids going to church. Nancy's been saying she wants to go to church. We are soon to be moving to West Virginia. Probably find some churches there. Then we started surfing different churches. You know, some didn't really work out. Mostly like Christian churches. It was Baptist, some other weird church that was like sitting inside of a Target. It was like retail church. Like you go with your kid, they kind of like scan it and then put him in a room. It was just too much. I started feeling further from God in those churches. I didn't like that. And I think when I was talking to you, I was flirting with the Catholicism. I'm not there. Maybe. I want the revenants of it. I love that. And I wasn't getting it at those Baptist churches. So we finally found a church that we like right now. I don't know. It's like an Assembly of God. I don't know. Is that non-denominational?
Probably.
So it's just like an old church with like a bunch of old people. And I just felt immediately like at peace there. I liked the way the pastor was preaching. I liked seeing my son take it seriously, and, you know, we're trying to get the kids to pray at dinner, you know, something that's like so far out of my realm.
Yeah.
Me still praying. trying to pray. I still don't understand it. I want to. I'm reading. I talk to the pastor, like, because it's been so stressful. I'm like, I'm just gonna hit up the pastor. He's gonna send me some passages, and I'm like, it feels good. So the story of Christ is something I just never entertained ever. I mean, I knew about it, but it just did nothing for me. And now, like, the closer I'm getting to the church, and like, just the story of Christ is like the most immense, like, joy and also like horror for humanity. So I've just come to a place where I'm sure people who knew me 5-10 years ago, they're like, oh, he's completely if I wasn't already off the deep end, they're probably like, he's way crazy. But I'm finding so much beauty and like peace in all of this.
Yeah.
And seeing my kid, you know, you worry about your kids going into the world, of course. And like, I want him to have a faith and build those morals. And like, watching him, we have a neighbor whose father died recently, and they're all like very openly atheists and kind of nihilistic. And, you know, my son, who's 6, was just like, he's praying for him to find God, because he told my son God isn't real.
Wow.
I was like, wow, at 6, like I was pretty proud. So that's where I'm at. It's like hard for me to really define things. Like, I feel like sometimes even talking about it out loud diminishes the way it makes me feel, and like the language isn't big enough for you know, that emotion. But yeah, it's been like a pretty weird journey.
Oh, wow.
It's funny you talk about the experience of when your son was in NICU and you're going to pray, because there was an Orthodox priest I was listening to, and he was talking about how a lot of things you will never understand until you experience it.
Totally.
For example, like praying to the saints, praying to Mary, praying in general, going to liturgy on Sunday, like you just don't understand it. And that's like the mystery of Christ. That's the mystery of the church, is that, and it's like that experience you talk about. You were praying the rosary one day and you felt Mother Mary's hand on your shoulder, like that. You experience these things, and that's when it starts to make sense. And this, you know, the obsession with logic and reason that came from the Enlightenment, where we're told that it has to make sense logically, but really, like, a lot of the things we don't lead with logic. It really leads from experience.
Yeah. So I keep talking about this thing, and it connects to God in that I keep telling people we live in a simulation, but I don't mean it like in a computer. I mean, like, base reality is God's reality. So if you're simulation theory, and I don't want to bore your audience, but that means, like, for most people who believe in simulation theory, you're in a computer, right? And base reality would have been the first reality that the simulation is based on. I believe base reality is God's reality. I believe we're in base reality, but I believe that world of like insane science, logic, which I love a lot of it. Clearly, look at us, look what we were doing because of all of it. But to a certain extent, all these things like the corporate media, certain institutions like colleges, of course, they create the simulation, this like false reality that they lay on top of the base reality. All these other people, like the people I'm talking about today, or anyone throughout time, they start thinking the simulation is the real one, and they buy into everything they hear in that, the headlines, the clickbait, all that stuff, when really, if you just like push that away, we can just get back to like base reality and like try to find understanding with each other, find some peace. It'll never be, because humans aren't fully peaceful people, but you know, that's what I keep thinking about through all of this, is like, we just got to get back to base reality, God's reality, and the simulation has to be destroyed.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah, Shia LaBeouf did it for me. I was actually watching. He did a really great interview with this woman while he was doing the Padre Pio movie, and I looked because I got served a video on YouTube. Is the interview that he did with Bishop Barron? Yep, it was 5 months ago. Yep, and I was like, yeah, that's 5. It was honestly, it was. I want to credit Shia for my return.
That was a great interview.
It was a great interview, but also it's like, I know I'm probably gonna get eaten up. Like, it took Shia LaBeouf like. Sometimes it takes people you would never think.
You just never know what it takes to bring you back to God.
I want to get him on the show.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
I don't know how. I don't know how to. Oh wait, I have IMDb Pro now, so I can reach out to his agent.
Ask Nick to ask Ye to get the Shia, because there's that funny story of Ye raiding Shia LaBeouf's closet and taking all his clothes.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Kind of still dresses like that a bit, the jeans and the boots.
Yeah, it was okay. So the theory is that Shia LaBeouf inspired the way Ye dresses, right?
Yeah, he took his clothes. Shia has said, like, I don't think he got him back.
Oh really?
Yeah, so was Shia said. I mean, that was years ago, but yeah.
All right, I'll reach out. We'll see what happens.
Come on, Shia. Let's do it.
Yeah, for real. Okay, listen, Shane, thank you for coming on. We really do appreciate it.
This was awesome.
You're
so much fun.
Probably one of the more interesting people that we've had on the show.
I appreciate that.
No offense to anyone else.
No, you guys have great guests.
Obviously.
I think honestly, so far this year, I mean, it hasn't been long, but my favorite.
Well, I think
so
you're the first writer that we've had on, right? Have we had other writers?
Yes, I think so. I think he's the first
real writer.
real writer.
Yeah.
With the hard T.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. No asterisks or anything like that. So thank you for coming on. We really do
It
appreciate
was
it.
amazing. Thank you guys so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you.
See you later.